On a quiet street corner, a little black girl sat with a handmade sign that read, "Miracles for $1." Most people walked past her, too busy to notice or too doubtful to care. But then, a wealthy millionaire stopped, curious and amused by her words. He chuckled, shaking his head at the idea that miracles could be bought for $1. To him, it was nothing more than a child's game, a silly way to ask for money. But there was something different in her eyes, unshaken faith, a hope so strong it made even the most hardened hearts pause. He decided to test her, tossing $1 into her small tin cup, still laughing at what he thought was nothing more than a sweet but naive gesture. "All right then," he said, smirking. "Let's see this miracle you're selling." The little girl didn't flinch, didn't even blink. Instead, she whispered softly, almost as if speaking to something beyond him, "Miracles don't always show up how you expect." Her words, though quiet, carried a weight he couldn't ignore. What happened next would leave him speechless, shaking the very ground of everything he believed. For in that simple exchange of $1, something far greater than money, power, or status was about to unfold. The millionaire stood there, still amused but slightly unsettled by the little girl's calm confidence. He wasn't used to being challenged, especially not by a child on the street. To him, life had always been about logic, deals, and control. Miracles didn't fit into his world. Yet something about the way she looked at him made it hard to just walk away. Her eyes carried a quiet strength, almost as if she knew something he didn't. Curious, he asked, "Where are your parents?" The girl shook her head gently, avoiding the question, and instead pointed to the sign again, "Miracles for $1." It wasn't about pity. She wasn't begging. She was offering something she truly believed in. That made him pause. Why would a child cling so tightly to the idea of miracles? What could she possibly have gone through to believe so deeply in something invisible? As he stood there, people around them began to notice. Some whispered, some laughed, others simply moved along. To them, it was just another strange street scene. But the millionaire couldn't shake the feeling that he had just stepped into something far bigger than himself. And though he didn't realize it yet, that $1 he had given was about to cost him far more than money it would change everything he thought he knew. The millionaire tried to brush off the strange feeling that lingered after speaking with the girl. He told himself it was nonsense. Yet he found his feet rooted to the spot, unwilling to leave. Something about her calmness unsettled him. She didn't look desperate, though her worn clothes and tired face told a story of struggle. She sat with quiet dignity, as if she was waiting for something only she could see. He decided to sit on the nearby bench. Curious to watch, the girl continued to whisper under her breath, as if in prayer. Every time someone dropped a coin or a bill into her cup, most walked away unaffected, but a few stopped suddenly, startled, as though something invisible touched them. A mother, clutching her sick child, a man staring at a phone with bad news, a worker who had just lost his job, all walked away with tears in their eyes, their burdens somehow lighter. The millionaire noticed every detail, and it gnawed at him. Was it chance, or something more? Meanwhile, his phone buzzed with urgent calls from his office. A major deal was collapsing, investors demanding answers. Normally, he thrived on control, but now his thoughts kept drifting back to the girl. Why did her words echo louder than the chaos of his business world? And why did he feel as if his life was about to collide with hers in a way he could never undo? The millionaire's chest tightened as he watched the girl. Each passing moment seemed to pull him deeper into a web he couldn't explain. His world was numbers, contracts, and logic, yet here was a child with nothing but faith, shaking the foundation of everything he believed. He tried to dismiss it as coincidence, but the way people reacted after giving her $1 was impossible to ignore. Their faces carried a strange relief, as if something unseen had shifted inside them. His phone rang again this time, his assistant's voice trembled. The deal he had spent months building was slipping away, and no amount of money seemed to fix it. Investors were threatening to walk for the first time in years. Fear crept into his heart. Desperate, he looked back at the girl, who was still whispering softly, her small hands folded in quiet prayer. The thought struck him, could she really help? Could this tiny figure on the street corner hold an answer he couldn't buy? The crowd around them grew. Whispers turned into murmurs as people noticed the millionaire pacing, torn between pride and desperation. His polished image was crumbling in front of strangers, and still, the little girl's calm gaze never wavered. The air felt heavy, charged, with something beyond explanation, as if a miracle real or imagined was about to reveal itself. Just as the tension reached its peak, a sudden commotion rippled through the crowd. A man in a worn suit stumbled forward, clutching the little girl's sign. His voice cracked as he shouted, "She saved my son last week. I gave her $1, and that same night, the doctors called with news we'd stopped praying for." His words silenced the murmurs instantly. All eyes turned toward the child, who sat quietly, not claiming credit, not even looking surprised. The millionaire's heart pounded. He had dismissed her whispers as childish fantasy, yet now a stranger stood before him, swearing to the power of her so-called miracle. Was it a coincidence, or something beyond his understanding? His thoughts were interrupted when his phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't his office, but the hospital where his estranged brother was lying critically ill. The timing struck him like a lightning bolt. He hadn't told anyone about his brother, yet somehow the girl's calm gaze seemed to pierce straight into that hidden part of his life. The crowd pressed closer, hungry for answers. The millionaire's polished world of control and certainty began to collapse under the weight of questions he couldn't escape. For the first time, he wondered if the real test wasn't about miracles for others, but about a miracle he desperately needed himself. The millionaire's hands trembled as he finally knelt in front of the girl. The crowd fell silent, watching the moment unfold. Pride no longer mattered. Wealth, power, business, all of it felt small compared to the quiet faith shining in her eyes. "If there really are miracles," he whispered, voice breaking, "then let one be for my brother." The words surprised even him. For years he had buried that pain, too afraid to face it, too proud to admit he was powerless. The girl smiled softly, as though she had been waiting for him to finally ask. She placed the single dollar he had given back into his hand and whispered, "Miracles aren't bought, they're shared." Her words echoed through the silence, and something inside him shifted. In that instant, his phone rang again, this time with news that his brother's condition had taken a sudden turn. The doctors couldn't explain it, but he was waking, breathing stronger than before. The millionaire's knees weakened, his heart racing with something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. The crowd gasped, some cheering, others weeping. Yet just as relief washed over him, the girl quietly stood, picked up her sign, and began to walk away. When he turned to thank her, she was gone, disappeared into the crowd as if she had never been there at all. And that was the final miracle he could never explain. The millionaire stood frozen in the middle of the street, the dollar still clutched in his hand. Around him, the crowd slowly dispersed, whispering about what they had just witnessed. Yet he remained still, replaying the girl's final words over and over. Miracles aren't bought, they're shared. For a man who had lived his entire life believing money could fix anything, the message struck deeper than any deal or success ever had. Later that night, he rushed to the hospital. His brother, once frail and fading, was now sitting up, weak but smiling. The doctors admitted they had no explanation, calling it unexpected progress. But the millionaire knew in his heart it was something greater. For the first time, he sat by his brother's bedside, not as a powerful businessman, but his family, grateful for a second chance. Days passed, and he searched for the little girl, walking the same streets, asking strangers, even putting out quiet notices, but no one had seen her again. It was as if she had appeared only for that single moment in his life. Though she was gone, the change she left behind remained. He began to live differently, helping others not with money alone, but with compassion and presence. And in every act of kindness, he felt her words alive within him, reminding him that the greatest miracles are not found in wealth, but in love, faith, and the courage to believe.